USA, pressure washer perfection.
Hi everybody, this is the original Josh back with Kranzle USA, pressure washer perfection. And today we are unboxing an 1122 TST, and we're going to go over the components that come with the machine, a couple steps that you'll have to do in order to set it up, and just how to get it ready for operation. So first item that we're going to discuss, there are a couple items that need to be installed when you first get the machine. There is a wrap for the power cord. This lobe down here will need to be installed. Sent with the machine is a packet that comes with instructions, the bottom lobe of the cord wrap, as well as the handle for the hose reel. There's also a tiny bag inside with your screws, and you'll just need a Phillips head screwdriver to install those. The two screws for the bottom lobe of the cord wrap go into the two holes provided right here, and then very easy to install the hose reel handle. Your screw goes right in here like so. You can actually orient this in a couple different positions because it is a hex pattern on the inside of the hose reel handle, and just pick whatever's going to be comfortable once you get it to the point where it's wrapped up all the way. So next we'll go over the accessories that come with the 1122 TST. We have the extended barrel gun jet, and this has your inlet, which is a 22 millimeter connection right in front of the trigger assembly, and then you have the connection for your extended barrel lance assemblies, which can screw into here. There are two nozzle assemblies. We have our Dirt Killer nozzle assembly. This is a turbo nozzle that will shoot a 0-degree pattern and rotate it several hundred RPM, giving you approximately a 20 to 25 degree fan coverage. This is your hard surface cleaning nozzle. You're not going to use this on your car or anything very delicate. This is for your concrete, metal surfaces, so forth and so on. But this is a very handy tool. And the Vario nozzle, which is a variable nozzle, it gives you the ability to change the pattern of the spray by twisting the outer casing of the nozzle. And you'll see here's the actuation of the fins. So as the fins come together, you get a fan spray. As they come apart, you'll get that straight stream coming through the center. Now this nozzle will also actuate the chemical injector that is built into the machine. It is a low pressure and or downstream chemical injector. In order for it to siphon, we need to actuate into low pressure, which is done strictly by pulling out on the outer casing of the nozzle. You'll see it exposes a portion of the brass here at the rear of the head of the nozzle. So this is the high pressure position, and then there's our low pressure position. It still will have the actuation of being able to change the pattern of the spray, but that'll give you the ability to apply your soap. Once you're ready to rinse, you pull back on the nozzle, it goes back into high pressure, and that will stop the soap from siphoning, purge a little bit out of the line, and then you'll begin to rinse. With the nozzle assemblies, there is a small piece of foam cushion that is in there just for the shipping purposes, but I find that a lot of customers hold on to it just because they like it. Keeps the nozzles from flopping around inside. So in order to install the lance assembly onto the gun, just slide the two 22 millimeter connections together, begin spinning the collar. There is a hex built into the end of the gun and a female hex inside the 22 millimeter fitting. They will mate together to keep the nozzle from rotating. So for this nozzle, since there is a fan spray, I usually will take the orientation of the fins and have them either straight as I can this way or angled this way depending on the cleaning task. Strictly hand tight, that's all we need to do to get it to seal. There's an O-ring that seals in the brass fitting, so no additional Teflon tape is needed. nor should it be used on any other connection with the pressure washer. O-rings and gaskets are how these connections seal. So here we have our gun and lance assembly ready to connect to our hose. The hose assembly has a very similar connection, but this one does not have the hex assembly in the 22mm connectors. So this will give you a little bit of the ability to swivel whenever the connection is tightened. Once again, the seals with an O-ring, so you want to make sure that if there is a leak, we replace the O-rings and not tape the threads. That, once again, only has to be hand tight. You can get a little bit of swivel in case you need to adjust the position of the gun. And then with your lance, you're ready to clean. Here we've set our accessories aside to take notice of a couple features of the pressure washer. First, we have our garden hose connection. Inside our garden hose connection, there is a small filter or screen assembly. You can pull this out and clean it. It's just a little metal screen inside of a plastic cap. Just flush it out if there's any debris that builds up inside. And it should just simply slip right into the center bore of the garden hose connection. You'll also see at the garden hose connection there is a black rubber gasket. Garden hose gaskets are very important, so this is another place. If it begins to leak, replace the gasket. No amount of Teflon tape is going to keep that connection from leaking. Other features to take notice of on the pressure washer, we have our GFCI power connection or plug. This GFI has a reset and test button. In order to get the machine to operate, when you plug it in, you will have to hit the reset button. If power is interrupted to the plug, or if the plug is pulled from the wall, that will reset the GFI. So every time you plug in the GFI into the wall, you will have to hit that reset button. So that's the first step in getting the machine powered up. Next, we have our on-off button. In the newer models, they do have the lighted rocker switch. This rocker switch will indicate that the machine has power, even if you release the trigger on the gun and the machine is no longer, the motor is no longer running. So if you see that, that means that the machine is powered on, if it's lit. Also up here on this face of the machine, we have the oil fill for the transmission housing on the pump. As I mentioned in another video, there's a slot in there that is just the right size for your euro coin for helping you to unscrew the cap. Unfortunately, we don't use those here in the United States, so a nice large flat screwdriver seated in there will help you get that cap loosened up. It's a little difficult to get cracked loose the first time. Just once you unscrew it, it should get easier to reinstall afterwards. Here we have our pressure gauge. The Kranzle gauges are covered with a protective cap. I recommend leaving the cap on there whenever you're not using the machine. Just real handy, keeps the gauge nice and clean, little added protection. Here on our pressure gauge, you'll notice several different forms of markings. This gauge measures pressure in 3 different units, SPAR, pascals, and PSI. Our measurement for PSI is on the inner dial of the gauge. It is the red markings. So if you call me and tell me that you don't have enough pressure because it's only reading 150, you actually are overpressurizing the machine because it's getting 150 bar, which is more than the rated pressure for the machine. But that's just the point. Make sure that when you're reading your pressure that you're looking at the right measurement on the gauge. Also here on the side of the pump, you'll see the unloader handle. This is the control piston for the unloader handle. When you operate the machine, in most cases, you're gonna have that wound all the way in, righty-tighty, until it stops. That's gonna give you the maximum operating performance of the pressure washer. If for some reason your cleaning task requires less pressure and flow, you can decrease the pressure by turning this counterclockwise. We often will recommend against tampering with the unloader valve because without being completely familiar with the machine, that can lead to inaccurate symptoms. It can just compound issues whenever we're trying to diagnose a pressure washer. So when you run this machine, you're trying to get it to work right, or work the way that it's been designed, turned clockwise all the way in, will give you your maximum pressure and flow. Also here on the side of the hose reel, you'll notice our low pressure downstream chemical injector, and this has a nice little plastic line that you can drop into your bucket or gallon jug of detergent or soap. It is weighted with a brass weight and has a little filter screen to keep debris from getting inside. There's also a handy little storage clip that comes with it to keep it coiled up. When you're done running the chemical injector or using it with the pressure washer, we always recommend flushing it with fresh water. So once you're done running soap through it, make sure you dip this into a jug of fresh water just to flush it out. Lastly, over here we have our hose reel winding handle. In order to store it, you can turn the handle inward. It'll fold down so that, you know, the kids with the bicycle driving by in the garage doesn't clip it and rip it off. So nice little storage feature for that. The 1122 gets shipped and can be stored in the upright position as you see it here, but don't forget, whenever you run the machine needs to be laid down in the horizontal position for the pump lubrication to operate correctly for dissipation of heat from the valve housing to the transmission housing and vice versa. So in operation, we want the machine to be laying down in the horizontal position. Then whenever you're finished using it, you can store it upright. Now, when you get your pressure washer, the manual, the box, and the pressure washer all have ID tags that show the manufacturer, model number, all of the specs for the machine, as well as the serial number and date of manufacturer. It's important to keep a copy of that for your records. That way you know how long it's been since you purchased the machine. If we have any warranty issues, we can go off of that information to determine the date of sale, so forth and so on. A couple additional caution markers on the pressure washer remind you to lay the machine down and not to pressure wash your family, pets, or electrical equipment in your house, in case you didn't know that already. So those are the highlights and details of the 1122 TST. So let's go over a couple additional things. First of all, we want to mention that it is very important to check the oil on the pressure washer regularly. It is the lifeblood of the pump assembly on the pressure washer and will give you an indication of if there is anything going wrong with the machine or if it's starting to fail in some way. So you can check the oil with the dipstick that is on the fill plug. On one of our other videos, we go over the conditions of the oil and what those mean, so you can follow that. Check that video out if you have any questions about that particular feature. The factory connections that come with the pressure washer are not necessarily the only instruments you're going to use with this machine, so it's important to know that if you introduce any third-party accessories to the pressure washer, that's going to affect your performance of your machine. In some cases, it will just lower the pressure, but be cautious not to use nozzles that you don't know what the size of the orifice is. If you use an orifice that's too small, you can overamp the machine. Point is, if you use accessories that aren't provided with the pressure washer or sold by Kranzle, that'll affect the performance of the machine. So something to consider. So there you go. That's the unboxing of the 1122. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm the original Josh here for Kranzle USA, Pressure Washer Perfection.
Kranzle USA, Pressure Washer Perfection.